Welcome back, movie lovers. Now, as the title said, this is the spoiler-free review. If you would like to check out the original review without spoilers, you can click the link in the description, and I would highly recommend you watch that one before this because I'm not going to go over the plot again. I'm just going to go over different things with it. So make sure you check that out before this. Now, you probably notice I'm wearing a different shirt. Ran out of time while recording before and actually had to go to the rehearsal from that time. So this is actually recorded the next day, and so, different shirt because that's just gross if you wear the same shirt 2 days in a row. Okay, now I want to go in depth in all three of the stories and really talk about the meaning behind them. Now, all three of these basically have the same message behind them. It is no matter how much you love, you still have to face death. Everybody has to face death eventually, which we all know. But each one shows it in a completely different way. The first story takes place in the Middle East during Ramadan, and it involves the sister of a caliph or Middle Eastern royalty who has fallen in love with a Frank, which is forbidden. He is actually known as the infidel throughout this whole thing. So, sister loves this. The caliph tries to stop this love from happening. He tries to convince his sister that this is a bad idea. You just have to move on. Do not go for this guy. He's just not good for you. Okay, and obviously because it's a love story and this is the same sort of scenario as everything else we've seen these days, she doesn't believe him. She still goes after him. So the caliph has him or orders him to be chased down, captured, and then eventually killed. Now, it's not just killed. He actually had the Frank ordered to be buried alive. And what's interesting is the gardener down there buries him alive, and all of a sudden, during a fading effect, we find out that the gardener is actually death the whole time. He's been waiting for this to happen. He knew this was going to happen, and then he takes him over. It's really interesting that all of these stories have death somewhere in them, and he just appears to take care of the now dead person because you cannot stop it or anything. Okay, the second story takes place in Renaissance Venice, and it involves a woman who is engaged to a rich man, but falls in love with a middle-class person. And basically what happens is she tries to get her current fiance to be ordered to be executed. Okay, so she writes a letter trying to do all this, but she actually writes two letters, one to him and one to her lover that she wants to actually be with. And when they take the message to the fiance, he notices there's another letter and he sees, oh no, there is something else happening, takes the letter, finds out what's going on. And then in the end, the woman who is now dressed up to kill the fiance accidentally kills her lover. And then all of a sudden, there is death waiting again, and everything is done. This is probably my least favorite of the three stories. It's just, there's really not much to it. As you can see, the synopsis wasn't quite there, but it's a really, really good bridge from the first to the third story, which was just phenomenal in all ways, shapes, and forms. And that third story actually took place in ancient China. It follows a magician by the name of Ah He, who is invited to perform at the emperor's birthday party. But he says, or the emperor says to him, if you do not entertain me, I will kill you. Yeah, that's no pressure at all. We're just going to, show up, and if I have a bad performance, which happens once in a while, I'm just going to die. So he goes anyway because he has to. It's the emperor. And the emperor falls for the magician's assistant who is already engaged to somebody else. There's a lot of people who are engaged already, and there's a lot of trials there in the whole movie from that. So, but anyway, the magician says, you have to go with the emperor. It's the order. We have to do this. So she steals the magician's wand. And for some reason, she knows exactly how to use it. And she's perfect at it. She turns the magician into a cactus and then goes from that to escaping everything. And she finds her lover in the woods. Now, in the woods, the emperor sends his archer. Okay, and the archer, this is the one thing I have to say, unlike the other stories, death was not very concealed, or was not well concealed on this. They didn't do any sort of makeup thing. You could totally tell it was death the whole time. So he goes through, kills him, and does it. And unfortunately, as everybody knows, you can't escape death, and that was the story of all three of these different challenges. Now, the one thing I do like about all three of these stories was the reuse of the actors and actresses. Lil Dagover plays the woman who lost her fiance at the beginning of the film, and she actually plays the female protagonist in all three of these different scenarios. And at the same time, the man who ends up dying is Walter Jansen. He's like the Sean Bean of this sort of story right here. He dies at the beginning, then he dies again, then he dies again, and then he dies again, because that's just what it's all about. And then death always has something to do with it as well, the same actor that plays him and everything. But that continuity is just amazing throughout all of these stories and how it works. The other thing I enjoy are the three different types of love within these stories. The first one, we have the forbidden love. We have the desire for the unknown, or the sort of the dangerous guy. We don't know what he's about, but we want to be with him. We just know we want it. It's something that a lot of humans face, especially, as I can tell you, I work with high school students. There's a lot of that happening in this area, and you just know about that. Then the second one is a more of a I have the wrong person, and I should be with this guy, but he's in the lower class. I mean, all of these stories these days are complete archetypes. We know that happens here, but back in 1921, I mean, they're relatively new. Okay, and then the last one, we have the just unfair love, as I would call it. You have the emperor who's in charge of everything, and he wants something, and when he wants something, he's gonna get it. But at the same time, they just the assistant doesn't want to be with him, and she'll do anything not to be with him, even to the avail of losing the one that she truly loves. And with these three different types of love, you really get the sense that love cannot outdo death. No one can outdo death, and you're going to have to face it sooner or later. So the woman obviously fails all three of these tests, but Death, because she is so passionate about this, and he actually is a good guy, he's just trying to do his job. And let's face it, there's a lot of people out there that don't like their job, but they still have to do it. So because of this, he decides he's going to give her one more chance. If she finds one person to replace their soul with her fiance, he will let her fiance go. So she goes into town looking for anybody she can. She asks the elderly, she asks the sick, she asks the extremely poor, everything. But she finally ends up in a hospital. And apparently in this hospital, a woman had just finished giving birth. So we have a brand new newborn. Obviously, you're not going to hear the baby cry. It's a silent film. So, good for our ears once in a while. But anyway, she goes there, and while she's there, the hospital catches on fire. And everybody gets out except, guess what? The newborn baby. And the girl's like, oh, here's my chance. He can't say no. The baby can't talk. So she goes in, does it, and when she's in the room holding the baby, here comes Death with his arms outstretched, ready to accept her choice of sacrifice for this. But as this happens, she hears the screams outside. And I have to say, this is a great thing done. I believe it was a clarinet that was just wailing at the top of their lungs, trying to really show the crying of the mother for all this. And what does she do? She puts the baby in a blanket, lowers it down. The town people catch it, but she cannot get out. The stairs she had used had collapsed. So she says, well, I'm going to die anyway. I'm going to actually give up my life for my fiance to come back. So he does that. Death takes her. And here's where the most beautiful scene in the entire movie happens. And yes, I'm a sentimental guy. I do enjoy good storytellings like this. I do enjoy happy endings like this. But he takes her spirit and her body, and he puts it with the fiance that was gone. And here, with some great crossover or overlapping effects, you see both of them get up and they walk away, and then there's a shot of them going over the hill into the sun. So in the end, love really did conquer death, but both had to die in order to get there. So even though death parted them, they could not be separated. It's just a beautiful story. Everything that everybody could hope for in something like this. And I just thought all of that was just great. And the symbolism for everything, you've got death, you've got the pleading for death. It's something that we all face. And I think just this movie has done a great, great job covering all of it. And especially for a silent film, I highly recommend it. Once again, you need to really, really check this out. Beginning of November of 2017. It's currently on Netflix. Check it out. If you have a subscription, make sure you do that. So anyway, thanks for watching my spoiler-filled review. If you want to discuss this, go ahead and put that in the comments down. I'd be more than happy to open up a conversation about this. God bless you all, and as always, that's a wrap.